Zoning Board meeting, and asking staff to call the roll, please.
Member Alexander. Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Member Pfeffer.
Here.
Member Rodriguez. Secretary Amoroso.
Here.
Vice Chair Cardo.
Here.
Chair Burke asked to be excused. Alternate D'Erico.
Here.
Alternate Webster. And alternate Zaltos?
Here.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting held on June 20th, 2024. Do you have any discussions for additions, amendments to the minutes as they are represented from any of the board members?
I have none.
No. You want a motion?
I believe so. A motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the presentations, awards, and reports, which I don't see we have any. Public forum. Do we have any members of the public who have asked to speak?
No.
I don't see any old business, so moving on to new business. I'll turn it over to Jessica to provide us with a presentation.
Can everyone in the back turn on the PowerPoint? There we go. Sorry, guys. All right, tonight we're going to go over ordinance number 09-2024 for Lehigh Business Park BPUD. The applicant is requesting to rezone parcel zoned C2 and BPUD to BPUD. The application is consistent with the future land use, as well as section 110.319 of the Land Development Code, which is under PUDs. The rezone will allow the applicant to better utilize the land for the business park, as it is currently zoned to, oh, I am so sorry.
That's all right.
It's quasi-judicial, so I'm going to turn the meeting over to Marcia.
Marcia can't speak. Is there anyone in the audience that this is a quasi-judicial hearing, that wishes to speak on this matter? If you will please, or an expert consultant, if you'll stand and raise your right hand. And Jessica, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. And then, Madam Chair, if you will ask each of your members to
If anyone has ex parte communication.
Ex parte communication, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate that. So starting at the end, we'll ask if you've had any ex parte on this site or this project?
Negative.
No.
I haven't?
No.
No.
The only thing I'll try and remind you of while I still have some voice is when we get to the end and your vote, will you please share when you vote your reasons for that vote? Thank you.
All right, I'm going to start over. Sorry, guys. Ordinance number 09-2024 is for Lehigh Business Park BPUD, located at 3141 Howland Boulevard. The request is to rezone a parcel of land zoned C2 and BPUD to BPUD. The application is consistent with the future land use, as well as section 110.319 of the Land Development Code, which is under PUDs. The rezone will allow the applicant to better utilize the land for the business park, as it is currently 2 parcels. Actually, it's a unified parcel. It was 2 parcels. This is the current development plan. As you can see, there are 77 parking spaces for covered RVs. There is 3 storage buildings in the back, as well as 2 office buildings facing Howland. Here are the elevations for Lehigh Business Park. They are going to be changing the colors of the buildings. They'll show you later. So when you're looking from Howland, you will see the 2 front buildings. You will not see the storage facility. That's how it was set up. And matters of consideration, this is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It will provide local jobs for residents. The project will pay for impact fees and provide commercial tax revenue. A full environmental study will be required before the project can actually begin, as it does have scrub jays and gopher tortoises on it. And there has not been any mistakes in the original classification. Within your staff plan, I did provide these goals and policies, the ones that are consistent with this project. And then based on decision-making criteria, staff supports the Planning and Zoning Board recommending the City Commission approve ordinance number 10/2024, amending the current zoning of BPD and C2 to BPD at 3141 Howland Boulevard with the following conditions. The developer shall perform a field review and signal warrant analysis at the intersection of Howland Boulevard and Rose Apple Avenue, which is the project's driveway, after the development is fully occupied, and the proportionate fair share information shall be provided to staff before the rezone can go in front of the City Commission. Are there any questions?
Dr. Pfeiffer?
Can you turn your mic on?
What does rezoning allow them to do that they couldn't do as it is?
So currently, it's zoned 2 different zonings. It does not allow for them to do the storage as well as have the whole business park. The BPUD will allow that. The C2 does not allow that.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Tara?
Yes, thank you. I think this is for staff. So, Jessica, I think I saw somewhere that a full environmental study would need to be done because there was presence of scrub jays, or, the jays and the tortoises. And I think I saw that they would be relocated. Where would they be relocated to? Do we know?
No, that's done during the, if they're going to apply, but normally it's done through the site plan.
Okay.
And it's done through the state.
All right, and then I did have another question, apologies. If we could go back to the slide that showed I think it was on screen 3, it showed the frontage, yeah. So the slide on the left, the photo on the left, behind the front of the building, to the left, that's the covered RV parking, and then to the right are the storage units. Is it only covered RV parking, or will like trucks, boats also be allowed?
I will let the applicant answer that.
Okay, all right, I'll sit tight then, thank you.
Yes, Dr. Pfeiffer?
I don't know if somebody will answer. There's going to be a retention pond. How is the retention pond sized to what amount of flow so that we know it's adequate?
I think that might be a question for the applicant, no?
It is, but so this is just a concept plan, this is a master development plan. The pond size may change bigger, larger with the final site plan. That's when engineering will look at the pond. The pond size is not looked at right at this point because it's just a concept plan, pretty much.
But there has to be enough room for it.
Correct, that's why we look at it at the site plan. So before they can actually build the buildings, staff looks at that, and there's an engineer that reviews all of that.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I believe we have the applicant here, if they can come up and make a presentation.
Excuse me 1 minute. Wasn't there some traffic issues?
I went over at the end.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening. For the record, Mark Watts with the law firm of Cobb Cole, 231 North Woodland Boulevard, DeLand, here with our clients, Tim Manko and Leahead, on behalf of Leahead Development and his support crew, as well as our project engineer, Chris Rowley with Zev Cohen and Associates. I want to first and foremost thank staff for working with us to get us here. This started a little bit over 2 years ago. We've been working on this application for about 14 months, just making tweaks and revisions as we went through the review process and and Jessica's done a great job getting us here this evening, so we appreciate that. But one of the interesting things, and I think this is a really good example of a property owner and applicant working well with the city and the staff, when Tim and his investors first came in, their intent was to move forward solely with storage and RV and boat storage and mini storage. And one of the things, Jerry Mays at the time was still here as the economic development director for the city. And Jerry said, we're losing our commercial area to just things like storage and car washes and things of that nature. And the first meeting that I had was with Tim and Jerry to sit down and say, what else does the city need that we could kind of modify this proposal, modify what we're bringing to the city to diversify it, so that you're not just providing that storage use, but you're providing some other needed services in the city. And we talked about things like industrial flex space and office space, and we really honed in on the medical office and the office complex that I think the city needs to have more of. And so I think it's a great example, and Tim and his team did a great job of, I think, responding to the city's comments and completely redesigning what they were going to come in and propose, and add in, the medical office and the professional office buildings in the front. We did talk about, put these up here for a second. The fact that the architecture is updated a little bit, and really what it is lightened up. I think that the goal was to make it, not quite as dark as what you saw in some of the other renderings. Give it a little bit of that, kind of light, light building look with some of the black, sort of industrial looking, window glazing and things of that nature, so that you've got something that kind of stands out along Howland. But in any event, I think that, again, even though the process has taken us a while to get here, I think we've ended up with a very, very good product, a very good proposal. As your staff report notes, it's consistent with all of really the only use, Dr. Pfeiffer, to go back to your question, the only thing we're really adding in here is the RV and boat storage. It otherwise wasn't allowed either under the prior PUD or under the C2 zoning. So we're adding that use, but we're also consolidating the zoning, because we had straight zoning on one part of the property and we had an expired PUD on the other part. So we're kind of wrapping it in so that you've got a unified development plan moving forward. So in any event, the question with regard to the stormwater, if we need to get into more detail, I've got Chris Rowley here. Chris, do you want to come up and just talk about that for just a second? The simple answer is we haven't gotten there yet formally. We have to decide what we're building first through the zoning, and then we get into the site plan process where all the formal stormwater calculations and everything else are done. But I think Chris has probably already done those. So,
Before you go,
yes, sir.
did you get the advice that we needed a medical center, dental center?
That's part of what came through the discussion with the city's economic development folks, and then based on those conversations, Tim and his team started looking and talking with some of the other Halifax hospitals, some of the other providers in the area, to determine what other uses they needed to support them, and expanding the amount of new medical office space was one of those things, but we've got other uses. You've got professional office and everything else that's also authorized here. So it can ultimately be a mix, but that came through the conversations with staff.
I mean, the only reason I ask is that we've approved a couple of medical office buildings in the past little bit, and I'm just wondering if somebody's done an economic analysis to say that that's still valid. And if not, what else would you put there?
Well, so the way that the PD works, while the medical office is where we're targeting at this point in time, if you look on page 3 of 14 of the development agreement, you've got a number of other things that are also authorized. So if it turns out that medical office, is you've got enough of it at that point in time. You've also got general office space, flex space, veterinary clinics, dental laboratories, barber and beauty shops, automobile rental agencies. So you've got a number of other things that can go into the property based on the uses that are proposed under the development agreement.
I mean, I asked the question because the last two that we approved, one was Advent and the other was Halifax, and they implied that they had some kind of a agreement with the hospitals themselves, such that their doctors could locate there. So I'm just wondering,
There are also other providers that are looking to come into the marketplace, and so this may also serve some of those other providers that aren't currently in the market.
Okay.
We're seeing that right now in DeLand. We've got a freestanding ER being constructed across from the Publix on 1792 at the south end of DeLand. That is, it's a different, it's not Halifax and it's not Advent, so it's another provider coming into the market, and I slips my mind which one it is now, but we are seeing that. We're seeing some additional, providers coming into the market, so this may be an opportunity for that as well. So as for stormwater, let me turn it over to Chris.
Hey, for the record, Chris Rowley with Zepco & Associates, 300 Interchange Boulevard, Ormond Beach. So we have looked at the stormwater. We have not done the full calculations yet, but basically everything right now currently drains to the back of the site where we have the stormwater pond now. It's responsible for us to put it in that same location, and we are going to design it to the 25-year 96-hour storm and the 100-year 24-hour storm. This is what's considered a closed basin, so we are not allowed to discharge anything off-site, and we actually are collecting flow from adjacent properties and maintaining those flows so we don't flood anyone out, and we also don't flood out ourselves.
Thanks. I knew you'd have an answer for that. Any other questions? Well, we certainly appreciate the time. We've got some other slides up here if you'd like to see them, or if you want to come down and see them afterwards. But again, we're looking forward to getting to commission. We appreciate the recommendation of approval. We're good with the conditions that we need to keep working on with staff.
I did.
I think we do have a couple more questions.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries.
Chair-
I just have one more question. What would the hours of operation be for both the storage units and the recreational vehicle parking in the back?
At this point, we do not. Let me just double check my statement before I make it here. We don't know at this point in time what the hours of operation would be.
Do you know, is there conversation or is there intent for it to be a 24-hour operation?
It may be. This is a particularly good location for something like that because you're on a main road versus being in anywhere near a residential area. So this would be a good candidate for something where you've got secure gated access that you can get in and out with a code.
Right.
I'd expect that the office buildings would maintain typical office hours, but it's not. Sometimes we end up putting stuff like that into a development agreement, but usually it's when you've got something that could be an noxious or kind of obnoxious use for neighbors when it's operating. Here, I don't think we've had that. We're surrounded by commercial, and I don't think we've had that concern raised as we've gone through the process.
All right, great. Thank you.
Sure.
So you are planning on having controlled access into the back there where the storage is going to be?
Yes, ma'am. If you can see here, I don't know if you can see right here, but there's a gate. So there's a gated access driveway that comes in through this main drive between the two buildings back into the storage area. And one of the things, there's somebody who used it on Jessica's presentation here. I think the question was also asked about whether it's only covered storage. It would be RVs and boats. That's the principal concept. You've got this, when you looked at the schematic and you saw kind of the covered area, it's right there down the center. We do have some uncovered ones as well that are on the sides. So you do have a mix. If you have a taller boat or something of that nature, you'd have a place to put that. One of the things that we've heard, I think in talking to some of the city staff and some of the elected officials also, the need for providing places for, like tractors, like tractor trailers, but just the tractor portion of it to park for some of the people that live in town and don't have a place to park their commercial vehicles. This is also a good opportunity for that as well.
Oh, so it can be used for that also?
It could also be.
Oh,
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I have a question on the two buildings that are facing Holland Boulevard.
Yes.
The one on the right, is that a storage or is that also part of the office, general office areas?
That's part of the office. That building, so we've got two buildings that are shown on the concept plan. One is intended as a one-story building. The other one can go up to 3 stories. And I think the way that the rendering looks here, you can kind of see into it, almost like it's, kind of a,
Right.
It's a 3D rendering, but you can kind of see through the windows there. It's not storage.
Okay.
So.
I think one of the major concerns that a lot of the residents and board members have here in Deltona is traffic. You want to speak to your TIA?
Absolutely. So when you look at, when you look at something like traffic generation, storage is actually one of the least intense traffic generating uses. And so with what you see here, you've got a site that's a little bit over 10 acres. If you put all retail or all office or, something of that nature on this property, you'd probably be somewhere in the range of 8,000 additional trips a day that you could generate from that type of use if you developed it all with that type of thing. The way that, if you look at the staff report, you've got a breakdown of both the AM and PM peak hours and also the average daily trips. And that's a really good illustration. So if you look at, the storage facility, which is the bulk of the site, generates about 116 trips a day. The office building, by contrast, generates over 1,000. And so, that more intense type of commercial use that is already authorized on the property with that commercial zoning actually generates more traffic. What we have to do from here, though, once you know from a zoning perspective what the uses are going to be for the property, we then have to get into that discussion about, okay, how's the traffic, we've got a full traffic analysis that's been done, but the next step in our discussion is what is the contribution that we need to make to resolving traffic issues in the area. Access-related traffic improvements are 100% the responsibility of the project. So if there's turn lanes required, other things of that nature that are required, they have to construct, and it's purely their cost. If there are other things, for example, a signal that needs to be modified, that is not just our project's, traffic that's causing the need for that signal modification, but it's the traffic that exists generally plus our traffic, then we have to do the proportionate share contribution. We have to calculate what our share of fixing that is, and we have to make that payment to the city or the county or whoever would be appropriate. So that step is required before you can get a development order issued. So before you can go out and start clearing the site or turning dirt on the site and actually building something, we have to answer all of those questions during the site plan process. And that prop share agreement has to be in place so that we're making that contribution as a condition of getting our development order issued. And then that hardly ever happens anymore, but if we didn't have to do a prop share, then we've got impact fees that we would have to pay as well. So there's a number of spots where we have to continue looking at the traffic. Same things about the environmental. We talked, the question a minute ago was about, what do you have to do with regard to looking at the scrub jays and the gopher tortoises? So far, we've found one gopher tortoise burrow. This is scrub jay habitat. We didn't actually see any live birds, on the site when we did that survey. But we have to keep looking at that. So when we get a development order to start actually developing the site, we have to have both of those studies renewed, and they can't be more than 90 days old when we start moving forward with the actual development. So if we do have any protected species there, we have to pay to have them relocated to an authorized facility. So if, for example, tortoises, you have to go to a, kind of a tortoise haven or tortoise mitigation facility.
There's a 6-foot decorative fence that's proposed, but it doesn't specify along which boundary. Can you tell me which boundary that is?
If memory serves, I believe that goes along all of them. But let me I think it's
around
required.
The entire property?
Yeah. And that's one of the requirements in your code.
Just around the self-storage part?
It's around the back portion. So I think it comes out of the wall that creates the front gate entry into the storage area and then goes down the sides of the property and around the back.
Okay. Is that also that property boundary is the one that abuts the residential? Is that correct?
Correct. So.
Okay. So that fence will then shield the residential from the pond?
In addition to the buffer that's required. We do have landscape buffers and everything else that are required as part of the development agreement.
Okay. You're planning on sloping the pond to what ratio?
I don't know yet because it hasn't been fully designed. It would be 4-to-1.
Okay. And that will include a maintenance berm as well with access to that area?
It'll require all the access for the ongoing maintenance of the pond area. That's correct.
How are you proposing to maintain the property and maintain the pond is working and functioning correctly, especially with no discharge? Or is there
So-
going to be some type of an association or business park association, or who's going to maintain the property?
So we're required under the St. John's permit for the stormwater system to have a maintenance entity. I don't know, it could be a property owners association depending on how this develops. There's a couple of options. You ultimately could have one owner that develops both the office park and leases it to tenants and develops the storage, area, and then, continues to own and maintain the whole property, in which case they would likely be the maintenance entity. Barring that, if it was divided into multiple, ownership, then you'd likely have a property owners association. That association would, have assessments and things of that nature, and would be required to then be the maintenance entity that's identified both to the city and to St. John's. And the requirement for that is included in the development agreement on page 9 of 14. So paragraph 16 in the development agreement has the language that specifies as we move forward that, if we have that diverse ownership, then we'd have to have a maintenance entity of that nature. Now, with regard to the discharge, as Chris mentioned, it is a closed basin. So with regard to how the pond is designed, we've got to design it to an elevated set of standards that not only continues to accept any flow coming on site from the adjoining properties, but also accepts all of the stormwater from the impervious area being created here and retains it for the storm events that it has to be designed for. So if the pond were to get bigger, for example, as we go through that design, that full engineering, then our storage area would get smaller. So,
Are you going to be required to submit a tree survey at some point in the process? Do you know?
I think we've already done the tree survey. Yeah. We've already completed it. It's already going through. It will be looked at again as we go through into the site plan because that's when we'll actually be doing things like mitigation calculations and stuff.
Your construction method is not to totally scrape the land, is it?
In all
Or is
likelihood,
it-
yes. I mean, you'll likely see this land fully cleared because of the nature of the development that's occurring. You've got a lot of it that is, it's going to be required to be cleared and graded so that everything flows back to the stormwater pond in the back. But again, that's going to be part of how it's approved during the site plan. Usually what we've done in Deltona, depending on what's in the landscape buffer areas, we can retain some of that existing natural vegetation. If it's scraggly, if it's not really, nice vegetation, then we have to come back through and supplement it so that it meets your standards for your landscape buffers.
I'm just curious if there was a way to preserve what's already existing rather than having to rip it up and plant something new.
In the areas where we've got buffers, absolutely. But as you look at, kind of the nature of the site, most of the site, it will be cleared for the development.
So the uses that you have proposed, you're anticipating that should cover everything that you're going to need?
We are. And if we wanted to add anything else, we would have to come back through and amend the development agreement through this process.
Do any of the members have any other questions for the applicant?
Okay?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, we appreciate the time this evening.
So closing the public portion of the meeting and opening it up for comments or questions from the board members?
No, Madam Co-Chair, I would like to make a motion.
Please go right ahead.
I make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend the City Commission approve ordinance number 10-2024, amending the current zoning of BPUD and C2 to BPUD at 3141 Howland Boulevard with the two conditions that are stated in the recommendation by staff.
I'll second.
Staff, can you call the roll? And don't forget, this is quasi-judicial, so we're going to need to provide a little bit of background as to why you're voting the way you are.
Member Gonzalez.
Yes, do that to me every time.
Sorry, alphabetical, I'm sorry.
I vote yes. Reason being is that it's the business development I think we need. The medical offices, support the doctors that are working in Halifax down the road, which is one of the major businesses here in our city. And it allows the local residents to be able to meet with their doctors in a closer proximity as opposed to going into Sanford or over into Orange City, and gives the doctors closer proximity to Halifax that they're where. I'm not the storage unit, I guess you guys have done your homework as to whether or not there's a need for a storage unit. You know, that's your job. The dock in the box right across the street from the Advent, you know, I don't know if we need that many, but we're not approving that. We're approving just the change to a bud. But that's the reason being.
Member Pfeffer?
I'll vote yes. I think there's a lot of RVs and stuff in town that have no place to park other than in their front yard. And I hope this will help that situation. So that's why I vote yes.
Alternate D'Erico?
I vote yes. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It will generate much-needed commercial tax revenue, and it's also providing another much-needed service to residents with RV parking, boat parking, and tractor parking.
Alternate Zaltos?
I also, excuse me, I also approved this because I like the general appearance of this commercial property that's coming in. And I do agree that we need some RV spaces. I do see a lot of those parked on homes throughout, and not to mention boats too. And then looking forward to see what the commercial buildings that are out front will produce for us. So I'm excited about this project.
Secretary Amoroso?
I vote yes, comprehensive plan, and I do see a need for it. I also do appreciate the fact that they work together with Jerry Mays to change the look of it, of not just a storage facility, but the buildings in the front. And the other uses, not just the doctor's office, like a vet clinic or a general use offices and stuff, would bring a good commercial revenue that we need to Deltona.
And Vice Chair Cardo?
So the beauty about going last is I get to agree with all the other board members. And I don't have to come up with a list of why I'm voting yes for this project too, because it's already all been said.
All right, motion passes 6-0.
Wonderful.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Staff comments? Any comments, Jessica?
So we are going to have our next comprehensive plan meeting on August 26th. It's going to be a commission workshop. We will have maps around the chambers. It's not going to be at chairs, or there's going to be chairs for people to sit in, but there's not going to be tables or anything like that. There's actually going to be maps of the city with what the maps that everyone worked on. It's going to have the different things on it, so people can write on the maps and everything like that, but they are going to be on the walls.
Can you tell us what day of the week the 26th of August is?
A Monday.
A Monday. And what time is that workshop going to be?
It starts at 5:30.
5:30 p.m. and runs until 7:30?
I believe their workshops normally run for 2 hours. I don't think it's going to take full 2 hours, but I will find out and I will send you guys that information.
Okay, when you're asking for maps to be prepared, is there a way that we can recommend that they do a sanitary sewer overlay on top of the maps so that we can designate commercial areas?
Have a good night.
Unfortunately, we're not allowed to share that information.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
What?
it's a Homeland Security.
It's Homeland Security. We're not allowed to share the sewer information unless you're building within the city and you want to know exactly how far you are from sewer. That's the only thing we can really give you. We can tell you a general location, like, hey, it's on this far on Howland, but we can't show you exactly where the pipes are.
So can we go to the utility department and request a copy of a sewer and a water map for a particular property? You're saying, yes, we can do that, but you can't show us.
So they can tell you, they can give you a utility map showing you how close you are to it, but they're not going to give you a whole layout of the city.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay. Jessica, aren't we having a regular meeting in August? Because I thought we were bringing land development code forward.
Yeah, and then in August, we are also going to have the land development code update for the zoning. So it's going to be all the way from agriculture all the way to all the commercials, industrial, PUD. The whole section's been updated. We're fixing spelling errors and fixing a lot of old language.
And when is that?
It should be coming to you guys in August. I am working my very hardest to make sure it comes to you guys in August. It's just a lot of section.
So that will be at the regular P&Z meeting?
Yes, it'll be at your regular P&Z meeting, and I believe we have, Marcia's going to be bringing driveways, and we might have one other item. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Food trucks.
And food trucks will be brought as well.
Okay.
I have to make sure that's ready too.
Are you sure that we are going to be able to get through that in one meeting? That seems like an awful lot to try to bite off and...
I'm going to do land development code. I'll push the project.
Pack some snacks.
We really need it. Yeah. So,
Yes, if we happen to find... If we happen to find an area where there's a consistency issue, where there's one section in the code contradicts another section, or there's not clarity, how would you recommend we go about providing you with that information?
You're more than welcome to email any of the planning staff. And so right now we are only doing the allowed uses within each zoning. We're not, unfortunately, fixing like the definitions are outdated. There's a lot of our code that's outdated. Right now I'm really just focusing, the main focus was on the commercial, but there's language that needs to be fixed everywhere. So that's why I kind of gathered it all and started working on it. But if you guys see anything, please let us know. I mean, it's code that we read all the time, so it might be something that we've missed.
Understood. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And we'll have that to you as soon as possible. I'm going to try to make sure that we send that agenda out way ahead of time, so there's plenty of time to look at it.
That'd be great. Getting it on Saturday for a Wednesday meeting, we might need a little bit more time to digest all that, so that would be appreciated as well.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So committee members, any comments from anybody on the board?
No, thank you.
Okay, so do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion to
Second.
adjourn.
So moved. Oh, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.